I am really delighted to be here with you today. This is such a great opportunity, really, for me to be able to talk with you in an informal setting, to hear from you your perspectives as the youth of this great nation of Somalia. I don't get this kind of opportunity very often, so I was delighted when I was invited to join you this morning. I'm also delighted at the photo you chose for me. You know, as you get older, your picture gets younger. So I'm really pleased I'm getting younger by the day, so thank you for that. That picture was taken when I was the Deputy Ambassador in Oslo, Norway, a couple of years ago. So I really thank you so much for the introduction, my friend. And for me, just to really quickly, as far as myself, I have been in the Foreign Service, thank you, for 31 years. So I've been doing this since 1986, long before most of you were born. And so I've had a wonderful career. I've enjoyed every bit of it. I've served all around the world in about 15 different countries, as far as in Asia and China for 7 years, in the former Soviet Union, Estonia, Kazakhstan, a lot of time in the Middle East, in Iraq and Jordan and Egypt and many other places. Recently I was the Deputy Ambassador to our embassy in Kabul, Afghanistan, Deputy Ambassador to Yemen, and Consul General in Peshawar in Pakistan, and other places I've been. I've been delighted to have done all of those assignments. I've learned a lot about the world through that experience for 31 years, and it really makes me very happy and very honored that President Biden selected me to be his ambassador here in Somalia. I arrived in June, in the middle of June, so I've been here about 6 months. And I've just been very, very impressed with everything that I have seen here. We have a very long-term, historic, and highly productive relationship with Somalia, with the people of Somalia, and we have a really great relationship with His Excellency President Hassan Sheikh Mohammed and his government, and also with the governments in the various federal member states. I travel as much as I can so that I can see as much of your country as possible, and I hope to do a lot more in the future. But all of that said, of course, we all realize that Somalia is facing still many challenges, certainly in the fight against al-Shabaab and ISIS, the critical fight that must be won. We, the United States, are a very, very solid partner in the security area with the federal government here and the federal member states. We have for many, many years supported and helped build the capacity for the Somali National Army, the Somali police force, which is also very critical in the security of the people of Somalia. And we plan to continue to do that. We are very supportive of making sure that we can be a good partner with your country to help secure all people of Somalia. We also, for many decades, we've had our relations with Somalia since the founding of your state in 1960. So we were one of the very first, if not the first, I think, country to establish relations with Somalia. And we are and have been for many decades and continue today to be by far the largest donor to Somalia in all areas, and especially, very importantly, to the American people in terms of humanitarian assistance. We are infinitely larger than any other country in terms of providing desperately needed humanitarian assistance. We've provided almost $3 billion just in the last couple of years to alleviate the needs that Somali people have in parts of the country. We know the challenges your country has faced in terms of drought and flooding and all of these kinds of things with internally displaced persons. Today, even today, the American taxpayer provides the funding to feed 2 million Somali citizens every single day. We provide over $200 million this year alone just to feed literally 2 million Somali citizens today. And we have been doing that for a very long time. And that's just one of the larger programs that we do in humanitarian assistance. We do a lot of other things. We do stabilization programs in areas that have been recaptured from 𝗏𝗏𝗶𝗏𝗆 to stabilize those communities, help bring services to the people of those communities, which is critically important in the fight against al-Shabaab and ISIS. We also do a lot in our public affairs operations. We're so delighted to have 𝗏𝗂𝗃 𝗏𝗏𝗃 leading our public affairs section. The programs that 𝗏𝗃 oversees and administers are vitally important because it helps us as the United States continue to maintain a very good connection to all the people of Somalia. We have forums like this where we can hear your voices, hear your perspectives, discuss with you, challenge us, tell us what you're thinking. Are the programs that we're doing here the right ones? Are they helping the people? This kind of conversation is vitally important so that we can make sure we get things right. We also have a big focus on the youth of this country. You are the future of this country. That's not a cliche, it's real. I have a daughter, she's about your age, you know, and I know she's my future. So I know how the young people are energetic, they're enthusiastic, they're hopeful, and really every nation needs the young people to be engaged, to think about the future of their country, think about how they can contribute to their country. You know, one of my favorite phrases in our history of our country is from our former president, John F. Kennedy, when he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." That's what brought me into service as a diplomat for my country. I really believe in my country. I believe in the good that it does around the world, and I want to be part of that. And each of you, as you think about your life and where you plan to go in your life and what you plan to do with it, wherever you plan to go, everybody has talent. Everybody has capability. But always, if I may ask you to remember, you know, you don't do it alone. You do it because your family has supported you, your country has supported you, they gave you education, they gave you the opportunities. So pursue your interests, do the best you can in your life, but always try to give back something to those who gave something to you to give you your start in life. I feel that way about my own family, my own mother, my father, my grandmother, my grandfather, everybody who did so much for me, and my country that helped me get my education and gave me this opportunity, which deeply honors me, to represent the United States of America here in Somalia. So long-winded opening, but I've just been very happy and enthusiastic about coming to meet all of you and talk with you today. I want to leave as much time as possible for discussion and your questions, so please look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much.
I would say, maybe I should bring this over here. I would say unequivocally, yes, definitely so. I mean, you have a long-term perspective on any country's trajectory, the progress they're making, the challenges they're facing, and you can't just look at a moment in time and say, oh my goodness, today this happened, this is a setback, or whatever. You have to gain the broad perspective and look at it in totality over many years. And the good news story about Somalia is the Somali people have overcome enormous challenges. I mean, we all know the history, you know it far better than I do, but look at Mogadishu today. Look at the situation today as compared to 20 years ago. There has been really solid progress. I would say 20 years ago, we wouldn't be sitting in this room talking with each other safe in a nice environment and having this conversation. So it's not to say that there's still not a long way to go, but I would say to you, it will take all of us, all of you, working together in Somalia and allowing the international community to help you where you think you need our help. Somalia is a sovereign country with its integrity, and it's got its own future that it's building. There are a lot of countries around the world, not just the United States, but many others who want to help your country develop even further, even faster, and overcome the security challenges you're facing, the economic challenges, all of those things. But to answer your question very succinctly, definitely there's been tremendous progress, long way to go. You've got real friends in the world who want to help you get there. Obviously, all of you, and including us at the U.S. Embassy and in the international community, we're watching everything unfold in Jubaland. We are watching it, and we are very concerned about the trajectory of things in Jubaland. We have voiced our opinion unilaterally as the United States, multilaterally as the international community. I think our message is very loud and clear, and the focus is on the stability of Somalia and the people, and that is, you cannot let this go to armed conflict. This cannot be a repeat of 2013 or 2019. You must not go to armed confrontation. That will not benefit anyone except the enemy, al-Shabaab. They will take full advantage of this, and you cannot allow that to happen. We fully understand the very complicated political dynamic and discussion that is being held here in your country. It's about, the Constitution, it's about the political arrangements, it's about direct elections for the future of this country. And by the way, the United States fully supports the aspiration that His Excellency the President has projected for your country. One person, one vote, direct elections. This is democracy. This is what we should be striving for. We even, after almost 250 years in our country, we still have these discussions about how we should arrange our politics and our elections. There's continuing debate in our own country about, we have kind of a strange situation with our electoral college, which is a little bit of a way we do our elections. Mm-hmm. And people debate constantly whether we need to change that or whatever, but my point is, you discuss it. You don't fight about it. So that's the point. We will do everything that we can to help where we can, where we're asked to support a peaceful resolution of the situation in Jubaland. We care about all the people of Somalia, including our friends in Jubaland. Cannot go to armed conflict, must not. It will be very hurtful for everyone. There needs to be a peaceful resolution.
Ambassador, my name is Dr. 𝗶𝘂𝗶𝗆, and academically affiliated from University of California, Berkeley. And I want to ask you just a quick question. Also, I appreciate also the member initiative. The question I want to ask you is, what is strategic initiative do you recommend to deepen in the Somali-U.S. relationship in economic development, security, and education, while effectively addressing challenges Somalia faces and achieving sustainable development? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for your question. I really do appreciate it. It's a very big question. It's a very strategic question. And as I said earlier, part of diplomacy and bilateral relationships is we talk to each other every day. We try to figure out what is in the interest of our host government and people, and what is in the interest of the United States. The good thing that I see is there is a deep convergence of our strategic interest between our two countries. We want to see Somalia safe and secure and stable and prosperous, and all of the people of Somalia have the same objective. So how do we get there? What role can the United States play? We are willing and have been willing for many, many years to provide a huge amount of resources to help the Somali people achieve those objectives. And it's very focused on security because that's the big, big challenge now. But it's not exclusively that. It is about economic development, opportunities, investments, these kinds of things. And it's not just about private sector investments. It's also about investments in education and in health, in all of these areas. Our U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, have multi-million-dollar programs to do exactly that. I just attended a conference here in this building upstairs just about 3 weeks ago, where we launched the 𝗬𝗂𝗶𝗶𝗿𝗇 initiative for all of the river connections, the canals, trying to bring the rivers in a way that feeds agriculture, helps grow food for people, but also helps prevent future flooding. We're putting tens of millions of dollars into that project just to help that community and that large region to capture the benefit of the rivers, to grow agriculture for the people, but also to help prevent flooding. So that's just a small example. So what I'm trying to say is where we, to use the English word plug and play, where we try to do things here, is where we see that opportunity where the resources that we can bring to Somalia will help benefit the people here in the best possible way. But whether it's in the security assistance with, think about Mogadishu, think about still the security challenges here. It breaks our heart every time when we hear about another attack here in Benadir and Mogadishu. I still have terrible memories of Lido Beach a couple of months ago. The security challenges even here in Mogadishu are still there. That's why we're redirecting a huge amount of money to help the police force here and the security forces to stop any kind of future attack like that. We have programs to help the vehicle checkpoints around the city, to build the capacity of the police, all of these kinds of things. So your security, it's not just the international community here in this area, it's the community in Mogadishu. We are concerned about your security, and we're trying to help where we can to build the capacity not only of the military, of the Somali National Army, but also the Somali police force as well, which is critically important. So security, education, health, child welfare, all of these things. We contribute really hundreds of millions into the global fund that helps education here and health here in Somalia. So your question is very well taken. I try to answer it the best way I can, but it's such a large question, and there's so much that we do, it's hard to bring it down to a short summary. But just rest assured, I see a great convergence in the interest of Somalia and the United States.
Things you said at your introduction resonated with me. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a product of Minnesota. I grew up in Minnesota. I'm very privileged to have an education over there. So I've been here in Somalia for 6 years, over a little 6 years. Last year I took a break to go study policy and analysis and institutional building at Harvard. And I'm back again, just graduated recently. But the reason why I'm back is because I'm passionate about education, and I think that one of the soft powers, I think a lot of the Somali-U.S. relations focuses a lot on the security and the military, and I've had the opportunity to work on access programs from the federal level, Ministry of Education, to the state level, and I've seen a lot and learned a lot. So last year, the reason why I took a year back is how can we improve Somalia's system building. Thank God now we have moved forward, but where can we really take, improve Somalis? As you know that 70% of our students are, not in school, and I think one of the soft powers that America can come in to play in is this. I was fortunate enough to work on some of the projects that is very noble, such as 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, that was able to work on access to education, and I appreciate the relationship that the Americans are trying to have with Somalia. But I'm also thinking about, as diaspora, what can we bring in? So the reason why I'm here is during Hassan Sheikh's first term, he came to Minnesota, talked to the Somali community, and has asked a large number of us to come and support. Now that we are here, it's been a really good opportunity. And to get to the question, I think this is a very loaded question. The question is written, I'm particularly concerned about the future of public infrastructure that serves vulnerable communities such as schools. I consider myself as an advocate of schools. There have been instances where public land, once marked for the collective effort, has been repurposed for private interest as a country that is growing up right now and reviving itself, and sometimes displacing critical facilities such as thousands of children. And an example for it right now would be a school that diaspora has really greatly invested in, 𝗦पछि Academy, which provides quality education with facility of almost 2,000 students are, being displaced currently or diminished. So what support or advice would you offer to communities and stakeholders in ensuring the educational institutions and community service remain public, protected and accessible, particularly in the face of competing interests? Furthermore, can the international community contribute to promoting the safeguarding of such public interest to ensure that they continue to serve public good in the long term? I know it's a loaded question. Thank you.
Really do greatly appreciate it. There's a lot there, and glad to meet a fellow Harvard alum, so really appreciate that, your question. Let me talk about the first part first. You talked about the Somali diaspora, which you are part of, and we are enormously proud in the United States to have Somali American citizens in our country. They contribute so much to our country throughout. There are many areas, not just in Minnesota, but in other areas, Ohio and other places, where there are large concentrations of Somalis who've come and immigrated to our country and have given so much to us as well. It's a very honorable thing that the Somali Americans, Somali citizens from living in other countries have come back to Somalia to help the country. That's very admirable. It's very helpful. And I'm really glad, and I get a chance to talk to many of the diaspora as well during my time here. On education, I will tell you that that is one of the primary focuses of our efforts here, of our programming, the money that we allocate here for education. The federal government of Somalia has an extraordinary minister of education who's doing really good things. We are keeping track and in discussions with him about the number of teachers being trained. One of the first events that I attended was for the graduation of I think, I forgot the number, but it was a huge number of new teachers. And I follow that issue very closely because, as you said, and I agree with you, education is the foundation of a country. The more educated the population is, the greater the chance for economic development and all kinds of social benefits that come for children, all children, to have access to education. I've been in a lot of countries over 30 years, a lot of countries that have had huge infrastructural challenges around delivering health for their citizens, delivering education for their citizens. I know these challenges. I know how hard they are. And I know that there can be complications at times where private interests diverge from social interests. And you have to always be very attentive to that. We as the United States cannot and should not try to direct things. We will not here. This is your country and your government and your ministers and your president. You make decisions about public investments in education. We, the United States, will always support that with money and effort and personnel to try to deliver as much on the education front as we can. We are always on guard, if you will, or looking out for areas where potentially our intention with the money and resources we deliver are not having the impact, or heaven forbid would be diverted. We would not allow that. We will make sure the money that we deliver here, which is in the hundreds of millions of dollars, are put to the right purpose and deliver the educational opportunities. We do it at the macro level to help, help train thousands of teachers. We do it at the micro level to help people who are disenfranchised and for whatever reason in other ways, and don't have the level of opportunity that many Somalis do. Minority groupings, those disabled, everything. We have the John Lewis Fellowship, for example, where we're trying to ensure that people who are on the margins state very clearly up front that the position of the United States of America is that we fully support the territorial integrity and the unity of Somalia in its borders of 1960. There's no deviation from that. There's no discussion about that. That is our policy. It has always been our policy. It will continue to be our policy. That said, we also recognize that there are always internal dynamics within a country, political differences within a country, and you know these issues far better than I do. We follow them very closely. We want to help in every way we can to ensure the unity and territorial integrity of the country. You talk about the MOU issue. Of course, everybody knows how hurtful and damaging that has been. It has had huge implications throughout this year since it was issued on January 1st of this year. We want to ensure that there remains the peaceful relationships between all parts of Somalia, that we followed very closely the heartbreaking confrontation in Sang and Sanul in that area in eastern Somaliland, and all of the number of deaths from that confrontation. Our policy is to do all that we can to make sure that that does not flare up again, that we can make sure and do what we can to help sure there's a peaceful resolution to the situation in that part of eastern Somaliland, and that is our intention. And we also want to help where we can to improve the communication and the relationship between Hargeisa and the government, the federal government here in Mogadishu. So we do all of that the best that we can. But, as I said, clearly our policy is what it is. We fully support the territorial integrity of Somalia, and we will continue to do that. But we want to help and make sure we continue to have communication, outreach to every part of Somalia. That's why I travel, that's why I go, that's why I talk to all the federal member state presidents, so that we can make sure we're all having a good conversation that's leading to improved relations.
I'd like to thank 𝗵𝗂𝗶𝗶𝗿𝗸 Initiative for organizing this event first. I have a question regarding this situation about Somaliland. And we first know the tension between Jubaland and the central government now and what's going on. And we know that Somaliland is continuing its efforts to separate the rest from Somalia. And does the US see itself as a mediator between Somaliland and Somalia and between the Jubaland and Somaliland? Has there been any open dialogues where the US Embassy encourages to have them, an open dialogue, and find them a common ground? And the second question I have is regarding a question in inclusion. Just one second, excuse me. What strategic steps is the US Embassy taking to expand access and inclusion in its exchange leadership programs for underrepresented Somali youth? For those are especially, we know they are not represented very well in those leadership programs. So how is this leadership in the new leadership embassy, in the embassy is, trying to work on those areas? Thank you very much.
Situation in Jubaland, the relationship with Somaliland, the focus and the energy of the United States will always be to try to improve the relationships, to avoid conflict, to ensure that there's productive discussions and relationships to the degree that we, as a foreign nation, as a guest in your country, can help facilitate those discussions. So I will stop there because these issues are happening right now. They're very sensitive, but this is the role of diplomacy. This is why we have an embassy here. We have open and frank and hopefully productive discussions with the leadership of the federal government, with the leadership of the federal member states, with all parts of Somalia, with the goal always uppermost in mind to make sure there's peace and stability and good relations. I know that's not a satisfactory answer, but it's the real answer, and we're doing everything that we can to that end. Yes, I mentioned some of them earlier. One of the programs I'm most proud of is our International Visitor Leadership Program. We've been doing that for decades all around the world in every country. We choose up-and-coming leaders in each country to bring them to the United States for an extended period of time, to visit our cities, visit our government, learn about our country. It's a very, very productive program. We have a large alumni base here from the IVLP program, International Visitor Leadership Program. We will continue to do that. We welcome nominations. We welcome people to contact our embassy. If you yourself are interested in the program, if you see somebody that you think should be considered, let us know. We can only have as many positions in the program that Congress gives us money for each year, but we try, just to your point, which is very important, to be as representative as we can from all parts of the society. We never allow it to go to just one group or one part of the country. For us, it's about all of Somalia. It's about all the people, get as many as we can. The aspiration that the president has for Somalia is one that we subscribe to, that we support. We think the more democracy in your political structure in Somalia is the best way forward. Democracy has worked for us for 250 years. We think it will work for the people of Somalia. We believe as Americans that every person should have a voice in who is chosen to be your leaders. We do that in our country. We just completed our own election a few weeks ago. There's always going to be controversy and competition, and that's democracy, you know. You espouse your position, you say what you would like to do for the country, the direction that you want to take the country in, and then the people, all the people, not just a handful of people, decide whose agenda they support. And it's the majority. So, as I said, we support that proposition. It takes a lot to get there. We know there are a lot of infrastructure challenges. It's a hugely expensive process to hold elections. There are security challenges. But in every way that the United States can help Somalia get to that aspiration and that objective, we're going to do. Well, thank you very much. That's really a very interesting question, two questions and comment. Thank you so much for that. On the first question about can I assure you that the money that we're spending here is not going to waste? Yes. Short answer. We not only have that order from our president to make sure that the American taxpayers' money is spent wisely, we also have our Congress who insist upon it, and we have to report every year about how we spent our money, where we spent our money, what was the effect of spending that money, was there a result? It's results-based investment. So we take our role as the stewards and the guardians of the American taxpayers' money very, very seriously, no more so than me. I have seen the waste of American money in other countries. In all of my career, in lots of places. I will never let that happen as ambassador. I will make sure that when we put our money, look, as an American, and there are Americans in the audience here, our government takes about half of our income every year in taxes. 50% away from us. We earn it. We work for it really hard. Our government at the federal, the state, and the local level takes 50% of it away from us, and they decide how to spend that money. I'm not happy about that. Most Americans are not happy about that, but it's reality. So we, as American citizens, insist that our government spend our money wisely. I'm in this position now to ensure that in Somalia, and I will. I look at my paycheck every 2 weeks and I see how much they take from me. I'm going to make sure it's spent wisely and for the benefit of the people of Somalia, because that's in our interest, and I make sure of that. On the very interesting question you posed from Francis Fukuyama, and he writes wonderful books. I've read all of his books. I understand it. I disagree a little bit with the thesis that you have to fix the nation before you can build the nation, before you can have democracy. We have the saying in English, you can walk and chew gum at the same time. You cannot have a perfect fix of a country before you try to build the country. And you can't wait for perfection in building the nation before you aspire to democracy. I think they're inextricably linked. How do you build the nation if you don't have democracy? You know, how can you fix the heartbreak and the challenges that people have faced without trying to show them there's a brighter future through building the nation together? So I do believe that, I don't believe in sequential approach that thesis puts out. I think they're inextricably linked, they're mutually reinforcing, they have to be pursued at the same time, and you will eventually get there.
First, I want to thank Mr. Ambassador Richard and member for giving us this wonderful space. My question is, we know that some Somali businessmen such as Faisal Dini and Farhan Hassan, who play a key role in building the country's economy, have been sanctioned by the US authorities. However, the Somali federal government considers them innocent. Where can they seek justice, and have you shared any evidence with the Somali government regarding these actions? Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. I cannot speak to the specifics of the two cases you're talking about, but I will simply say that, you know, when the United States makes a decision to issue a sanction on an individual, it is a very deliberate and very serious process that basically works through primarily our department, U.S. Treasury Department, that has purview over sanctions and things like that. I have seen this process play through during my career in other countries, and all I can do is tell you that the U.S. government only acts with sanctions when they have clear evidence. It is a very legalistic process. So again, I'm not talking about these two cases. I don't know the details of them, and it would be inappropriate for me to talk about those specific questions, or those two specific cases. But in my career, in my experience, and I have worked on sanctions in many other countries targeted against people who were doing really bad things for that country and for the international community. The sanctions were fully warranted. There was evidence to back it up, and we would never pursue it otherwise.
We have a good relation with card providers, payment card providers like MasterCard, Visa card, and also so many other partners, international, especially in American partners. My question is, why is there hesitation from international stakeholders to engage with Somali banks? And also, what steps can be taken to strengthen collaboration between U.S. institutions and Somali banking sector to build trust and drive economic growth?
Thank you very much for that question. I really appreciate it, because that is one area of my primary focus here as well. In addition to being a diplomat for 30 years, I worked in the private sector. I did, like this lady, I went to Harvard to do my MBA. So I'm very much focused on the private sector, all of the industries, especially the banking systems. In my other positions that I've held in other countries, whether in Yemen or Afghanistan or other places that who have economies that are stressed and challenged, and in some ways disconnected for the international banking system. This is a huge problem. You have to make sure that the central bank is functioning the way it needs to, and then the private sector banking system is in place and functioning and has connections internationally. I know that, and I know how critical that is, and thank you for the work you do in your bank and in the banking industry, because that's critically important. I am very focused and understand the challenges that the average Somali citizen has to move money around, to have a banking ability and all of that. What I know, all I can answer your question, how I can answer it, is that there is an enormous amount of work that we as the United States are doing through the U.S. Treasury in our discussions with the federal government, also with the IMF and the World Bank, so that the foundation can be laid for those correspondent banking relationships to be reestablished. We know how very important it is. There are huge ongoing discussions. I just met with your Minister of Finance a few weeks ago. We talked about this. He just came back from the annual conference in Washington, the IMF and World Bank conference in October. So we discussed that as well. So you ask a very important question. It's very important for the future of Somalia, the economy of Somalia, the ability of Somali citizens to transact their business every day. Trust me, lots of discussion, hopefully soon a lot of action on this. It's critically important. I worked for over 2 years on the central bank issues in Yemen after the Houthis took over the country. And then the legitimate government under Hadi was able to regain the southern part of the country in Aden. And all of the discussion about the central bank and how it could function in that kind of environment. So I'm very familiar with these issues. I'm also very focused on it. Thank you.
Dr. Ali, thanks, Mr. Ambassador. I have 2 very quick questions. The first question I want to ask you is, are there any plan to increase scholarship opportunities for Somali students to study in the US or through international exchange programs? I have another question. The question is, how does the US address challenge like youth displacement and access to the basic service for young refugees and IDPs in Somalia? My last question, I will add to something. We know Somali refugees, they're always increasing and still they continue. So that's what I want to ask the question, and just to give me that.
Getting closer to the end.
As far as the programs that we have, thank you very much for the question. We do all that we can with the money that Congress gives us. We try to open up as many opportunities as we can with as many positions in each of the programs, whether it's the International Visitor Leadership Program, the John Lewis Fellowships, in everything that we do. We maximize those programs, and our Public Affairs Officer, 𝗞𝘂𝗹𝘆𝗄𝗆, can give you more information on that. She runs these programs, and as I said also, we try to diversify the opportunity throughout the country to make sure we have representation. On your question about internally displaced persons, if I understood correctly, believe me, we are very focused on that issue. I've had some very good discussions about that. I had one senior official criticize us, despite all the money we give, to say basically people just kind of stay in these locations and these camps for all of their life and they never graduate to something better. Well, my response to that is all we can do is provide the relief that we're giving to help people in desperation. It's going to take a partnership between us, the international donors, and the federal government and the federal member state government to give these folks an opportunity to move on in their life to other opportunities. If I could generate jobs, I would be the President of the United States because I would be happy to do that in my own country. You just can't fabricate jobs and give people opportunity. It's an organic thing that comes through building the economy. It's a long process that takes a lot of effort. But I can assure you, as I've said the numbers, you've heard them, we give hundreds of millions of dollars to feed people, to clothe them, to help deliver services to them, to help them when they're in desperation from floods and famine and drought. We will continue to do that. Those who are displaced by those events, which is a tragedy, we will always, always, directly or working through our international partners, the World Food Program and every other good program, to deliver the relief that the people need. And if we can, in those programs, instill a process by which those people can move on with their lives after they've been helped, that's all the better. We are focused on that. Thank you.
Our initial time's been ended, but generously the ambassador's staff increased our time by 20 minutes. So let us utilize wisely. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, to providing this opportunity to ask you some questions. I'm Ahmed Noor, working in Premier Bank as the head of public relations and member of Somali Bankers Association board. My question is, we have a good relation with card providers, payment card providers like MasterCard, Visa card, and also so many other partners, international, especially in American partners. My question is, why is there hesitation from international stakeholders to engage with Somali banks? And also, what steps can be taken to strengthen collaboration between U.S. institutions and Somali banking sector to build trust and drive economic growth? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that question. I really appreciate it because that is one area of my primary focus here as well. In addition to being a diplomat for 30 years, I worked in the private sector. I did, like this lady, I went to Harvard to do my MBA. So I'm very much focused on the private sector, all of the industries, especially the banking systems. In my other positions that I've held in other countries, whether in Yemen or Afghanistan or other places that who have economies that are stressed and challenged and in some ways disconnected for the international banking system. This is a huge problem. You have to make sure that the central bank is functioning the way it needs to, and then the private sector banking system is in place and functioning and has connections internationally. I know that, and I know how critical that is, and thank you for the work you do in your bank and in the banking industry, because that's critically important. I am very focused and understand the challenges that the average Somali citizen has to move money around, to have a banking ability and all of that. What I know, all I can answer your question, how I can answer it, is that there is an enormous amount of work that we as the United States are doing through the U.S. Treasury in our discussions with the federal government, also with the IMF and the World Bank, so that the foundation can be laid for those correspondent banking relationships to be reestablished. We know how very important it is. There are huge ongoing discussions. I just met with your Minister of Finance a few weeks ago. We talked about this. He just came back from the annual conference in Washington, the IMF and World Bank conference in October. So we discussed that as well. So you ask a very important question. It's very important for the future of Somalia, the economy of Somalia, the ability of Somali citizens to transact their business every day. Trust me, lots of discussion, hopefully soon a lot of action on this. It's critically important. I worked for over 2 years on the central bank issues in Yemen after the Houthis took over the country. And then the legitimate government under Hadi was able to regain the southern part of the country in Aden. And all of the discussion about the central bank and how it could function in that kind of environment. So I'm very familiar with these issues. I'm also very focused on it.
Thank you very much to member initiative. My name is 𝗂𝗶𝗶𝗿𝗆. I'm an academician and also a health worker. My question is, in Somalia, we are searching for leadership or leaders, and our leaders are not trained very much. These people will be the future leaders, and you said you invest them very well, and we thank you for that. But we need a very specific programs for leadership development. A lot of people ask you about the scholarships that we are missing, the access to. Does the United States has specific programs, or are you going to formulate some to develop the future leaders of this great nation, because we are in search of such kind of leaders. And with that can come with all the questions that we can summarize with all the questions about the scholarships and the training and all this kind of. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I hate to keep saying the same refrain, but it's real, and I don't want to give false hope or anything like that. We can only do the programs here in Somalia that we have money for, that Congress gives us money for, that we have budgets for. We are doing a lot. Like I said, and I mentioned the International Visitor Leadership Program, the John Lewis Fellowships, and I also didn't mention the training programs we also do with in the security sector with the military and the police, and we do training for them and bring them to the United States as far as leaders in the military area and the police area. We do all of that because all aspects of Somali society we want to help with leadership training and everything else. I also don't want to forget that the United States has some of the best universities and colleges in the world. And we have a large, thankfully, a large Somali diaspora who are American citizens now, many of whom are in our colleges and universities. And for those who are here who want to go there, our embassy can provide as much information, assistance, but I will tell you, this is a process that the individual needs to take up, him or herself, engage, send the applications, connect, communicate, because I had to do that as a student. I didn't get a free ride in college or my graduate work. I paid for it myself through work. I didn't get any kind of scholarships. I was pretty smart, but I didn't get scholarships. I had to pay for it. I paid for it out of my own pocket, and I worked really hard for a long number of years to get there. So it really is about the entrepreneurial spirit of the individual. Somali citizens can apply to our universities and colleges. There are programs in each of those universities and colleges for scholarships for foreign citizens who want to apply. There are a lot of them. If our embassy can help in any way to make the connection for Somali citizens and students who want to go, we're happy to do that. You know, we have resources we can offer to do that. So I'm just saying that because that's over and above the direct programs that we pay for to help bring future leaders to the country. But do not ever hesitate to contact our embassy. We will help you as you try to connect to our very broad network of colleges and universities in the United States. Okay.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I am so sorry. I have been instructed to wrap up the session. I know that you guys have a lot of questions in your stomach. That's the time we are going through. And I am 100% certain that the ambassador has also a lot of insight to share. But as been promised earlier, there will be a lot of similar sessions like this. And I hope a member will organize some similar sessions in the future. I am so sorry. I will take all the responsibility for those questions that have not been taken.
Member.